quick disclaimer before we jump into the video. So I just want to say that this video is intended for people who are aware of their body composition or are trying to change it, whether that's gaining muscle, losing body fat, or maybe even just maintaining their current weight and physique. I'm not necessarily saying everyone should be tracking calories. So with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. Alright, what is good guys, and welcome to the video. So this is going to be a fairly short but hopefully informative one. As you can see from the title, we're going to be talking about how many calories you should be eating during lockdown. The advice in this video as well can be applied to normal life when normality resumes and we're out of lockdown. So the short answer is probably less than usual. Myself included, I know a lot of people have been less active than usual, so we should probably be consuming less calories than usual. But the long answer, and it depends on an individual basis. So if you want to figure it out, you follow these steps. So the first thing you need to do is figure out your BMR, which stands for basal metabolic rate. And essentially this is the number of calories you burn at complete rest. So this is dependent on your age, weight, height, gender, and if you want to be really accurate, you can actually take into account body fat percentage, because two people that weigh the same can actually have different BMRs. If one person has more muscle mass and less body fat than the other person, they will have a higher BMR than the other one with less muscle and more body fat. So I will put a link to a calculator to figure out your own BMR in the description. So once you've figured that out, the next thing you need to know, because obviously no one is completely sedentary, everyone does some form of activity. The next thing you need to know, second step, is your activity factor. So this is essentially a number that you times your BMR by to get your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure, or otherwise known as maintenance calories, which is basically the number of calories you need to consume to maintain your body weight. Once you know your TDEE, going back to how many calories you should be eating, it depends on your personal goal. So if your goal is to gain muscle, you should be in a calorie surplus. So you take your maintenance amount and you should be consuming more than that. I typically recommend no more than about a 500 calorie surplus, so 500 calories more than that maintenance amount. This is mainly to prevent you gaining excess body fat. Your body can only gain muscle at a certain rate, and consuming more calories is not going to accelerate that rate. So if your goal is to gain fat loss, you basically do, if your goal is to lose fat, not gain fat loss, you basically want to consume less calories than your maintenance, so you'll be in a calorie deficit. So again, I would probably recommend no more than a 500 deficit, so take your maintenance minus 500, and that's about the limit to as low as you want to go. This is mainly to prevent you losing excess muscle, or losing a lot of lean muscle mass, because that will just be bad in the long run. You'll end up reducing your overall BMR, you'll rebound a lot easier, so yeah, it's just a bad idea. You basically want to try and lose body fat and maintain as much muscle as possible. So the third step as well is figuring out how many macronutrients you need to consume. So protein, carbs, and fats. There is a fourth macronutrient, alcohol, but we're not going to talk about that in this video. So protein, first and foremost, as arguably the most important macronutrient. As a typical guideline, I would recommend 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. This usually needs to be increased when you're in a calorie deficit to help preserve lean muscle mass, or a rough estimation is 20 to 35% of your overall calories. And then the same thing for fats, roughly 20 to 35% of your calories coming from fat, as protein and fats are essential macronutrients. Thirdly, carbohydrates. I basically would allocate the remainder of your calories to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are non-essential, so you can survive without them, but they do help with energy levels and stuff. So obviously everyone responds to different ratios differently, and it does take a process of trial and error to figure out exactly what works for you, but hopefully that gives you some sort of guideline to start with. So once you know how many calories you should be eating, you've kind of figured out your target macros. You might be asking, well, how on earth do I actually figure out what I'm eating on a day-to-day basis, or how that equates to how much food volume I should be eating? So the most accurate way to figure out how much you're eating is to use a digital food diary, something like MyFitnessPal. where you basically input the foods that you're eating throughout the day, and then at the end of the day it will give you a total of your calories, protein, carbs, fats, etc. And then you can kind of see how that relates to your targets and figure out what you need to change. So if you look at your log and go, my protein is lower than it should be, then you should try and take steps to increase your daily protein intake. And then the same goes for the other macronutrients. If you see you're eating too many carbohydrates, then you see how that relates to what you should be eating, then just try to reduce the number of carbohydrates you're eating. I will do a separate video kind of going into more depth in nutrition, but hopefully this will just give you a brief summary of how to get started. I do understand some people think tracking food can be obsessive, so although it is the most accurate way to keep a track of your nutrition and work towards nutrition goals, a slightly more vague way you can go about it is just try to be fairly consistent with the amount of food that you're eating, and then keep an eye on your body weight. So I would recommend weighing yourself every morning and taking a weekly average. So weigh yourself every single day, divide by 7 to figure out what the average over the week is, because there can be daily or even hourly fluctuations in your weight. So if you only ever measure your weight every now and again, someday you might be really dehydrated, you haven't eaten any food, so that's a low weigh-in, then you actually lose body fat, but you do a weigh-in where you've just had a whole glass of water, you're quite full on food, that weight on the scale might be slightly higher than usual, which is why it's so important to take an average. So going back to what I was saying, if you don't want to track calories, just try to be fairly consistent with the volume of food that you're eating. Keep an eye on your body weight, and then basically see how it changes. So if you're trying to gain weight, but you see your body weight is going down or staying the same, then you should increase the total volume of food that you're eating. And then vice versa for fat loss. If you are trying to lose weight, you keep an eye on the scale, it's not changing or might even be going up, you need to then reduce the total volume of food that you're eating. So hopefully that gives you a pretty solid idea of how to get started in terms of calories and macronutrients and stuff. As I said, there will be links to calculators in the description if you guys want to figure out for yourself. And as always, I am a qualified personal trainer. I do offer online-based services where I can help you with diet and nutrition. So the link to my website will be in the description if you want to find out more. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.